All right, so we all know it. We don't want to admit it. We don't want to talk about it, but we're all going to get old. Unfortunately, they haven't come up with a way to prevent that. We're all going to get old. We're all going to pass away. So we just got to plan for it. But a lot of us don't want to talk about that. And we really don't want to talk about that with our parents or with the elderly. And we see this all the time where parents, they start getting older. It's just an uncomfortable conversation, especially, I mean, I think as both, but I'm thinking of myself as a child talking with my parents and saying, hey, mom, dad, you're getting old. We got a plan for this. I'm worried about you. I care for you all, and I want what's best for you. We got to work on some stuff. And same for the parents. The parents don't want to talk about it because there's probably a lot of stuff going on in their mind. One of them is which, they're probably thinking, well, hey, if I'm talking about getting old and dying or having physical or mental health issues, it's, some people think it's like, bringing it on sooner just because you're even thinking about it or talking about it. But there's very practical things that should be talked about. And so I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. And again, each family is different. Family dynamics are different. I get that. And so there's no one size fits all as far as having the conversation, how to have the conversation. But the truth is, you got to have the conversation somehow, because there's very practical things that even if you have the conversation, your parents or, your grandparents or whoever, in your life is aging, or if you're the aging person, there's a lot of things that are going to happen. And, if you're the child, I'm just using the child as an example here, there's a lot of stuff that are potentially going to fall onto your plate, whether your parents, discuss it or not. And equally, there's some things that are probably going to happen to your parents, to the parents, if you're the parent, whether you talk about it or not. And so anyways, I just wanted to kind of bring this up and have a couple things to talk that I think are very practical that you should have talk about with the aging, your aging loved ones. Number one, think about long-term care, right? Long-term care insurance. If you don't have, you should, number one, just look and see what options are available for long-term care insurance, right? It's really, I talk about it in other videos, but it's really important. Most people at some point in their life are going to need some sort of caregiver. It might be an unpaid caregiver like a child, or it might be a paid caregiver. You might have to go into an assisted living facility, a nursing home, something like that. And it's very, very expensive. Check your local where you live, but in Florida, as of 2023, the average stay in a long-term care facility is about for a private room is about $118,000 per year. So that can very quickly eat into your savings, into your retirement. Now, long-term care insurance is a great option. Most people think that Medicare, right, when you turn 65, that's going to cover it. It doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover most of the things that you would think. Medicaid could be an option, but not everybody qualifies for Medicaid. So again, it's a big topic. I don't want to talk too much about it here, but start thinking, have your parents, again, or your loved ones, or if you are the elderly, start thinking about long-term care insurance. You can never think about it too soon, but it can be too late to get it. So that's something that you want to think about. Number two, talk about who you want to be, what we call advanced directives, who you want to be in charge of your medical affairs if you're unable to make medical decisions for your behalf, right? So we might call this a healthcare power of attorney, a designation of healthcare surrogate, some version of that. But if something were to happen to you, maybe you're not, I see this come up a lot. Either you're in an accident and you're incapacitated and the doctors need to communicate with somebody, but if you're not named as their healthcare proxy, the doctor's hands are tied. Or number two, a person is suffering from Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, something like that, where they don't have mental capacity to make medical decisions. Again, this could happen even at a young age, right? So everybody and it's so easy. I mean, attorneys can draft them, but you can get a lot of this healthcare document from even your physician sometimes, or your local bar association, your state attorney bar association. So these are readily available, very easy to get. So that's something you want to consider. Number two, your power of attorney. So again, the power of attorney is a document that where you name somebody to access financial records, sell real estate, basically act on your behalf. And again, I see this come up in a lot of the same circumstances: incapacity or just the diseases associated with aging, like Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. And I see a lot of times where, let's say, your parents own their house, but now they're aging. Mom passes away, so dad's left alive. He's on his own, but now he's got Alzheimer's. Well, he doesn't have capacities to sell that home, and maybe he needs the money. Maybe he can't take care of the house anymore. Maybe something's going on. Well, if there's no power of attorney and the property's not in a trust, he's not going to be able to sell that house, which is going to be a huge burden on the family members. You might have to then open up what's called a guardianship to have someone named as his legal guardian, which guardianships happen. But if you have that healthcare power of attorney, if you have that power of attorney, and then ideally you have a trust as well, you can avoid the guardianship. But really talk with your parents about the power of attorney, talk with your parents about the healthcare surrogate, talk with your parents about insurance, long-term care insurance, because that stuff's going to fall on you. You're the one who's going to be, if you're the child, you're the one who's going to be left trying to deal with all those expenses. Or if you are the parent, or if you are the elderly person, you don't want a guardianship. I promise you that. Because if you have a guardianship, it means that you've been deemed incompetent by the court, and now the court's going to name somebody to be your legal guardian. And it might not be who you want it to be. It could be a court-appointed person. They're very expensive. Basically, you're brought into court, deemed incompetent by the judge. The judge takes away all of your legal rights. Now somebody else is managing your money for you, doing everything on your behalf. Your rights have been taken away. It's embarrassing. It's public record. So a lot of people are taken advantage of. So if you should have these documents in place as well. And don't think, hey, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 40s, or I'm in my 60s and I'm incredibly healthy. I don't need it. You just never know. And it's so simple to get this stuff done that it's like, why not, right? You know you're going to age. You might as well just do it. And the last thing I'd mention is funeral cremation, or what you want to do. Again, not something we want to think about, but it's so simple. We know we're going to pass away, right? I know it's not maybe for me, I'm a little bit desensitized to it a little bit because I work in this space, but we all know we're going to pass away. It's not easy to think about. It's not easy to, come to that realization. But I see so many times where families either, one, they just can't afford to pay for that funeral, to pay for that cremation, and it puts the family members in a really difficult situation. So there's things that you can do now to plan ahead. Or two, you've got siblings who are fighting, or people who are fighting. Brother wants a full service, sister wants you cremated, and it just becomes a huge fight. You can take care of that now. State your end of wishes. Go ahead and start planning for that. So again, these are just a few of the things that I see that I recommend. These are very practical things that are going to happen whether you like it or not. So have that conversation. I know it's difficult. It's probably going to take multiple conversations. If you're the child, your parents probably going to blow you off the first time, the second time, the third time, but just keep trying. And if you are the parent, or if you are the aging person, think about your kids, think about your loved ones. Don't put them through that. It's very difficult, very painful, and very expensive potentially. So there you go. Plan for it. It's practical stuff. Have that conversation.